Music's always been a massive part of my life. My dad was always playing rock and roll music in the house. The Beatles, Eric Clapton and David Bowie, so I was surrounded by it. My mum says we would be watching Disney movies as a kid, and I would be singing along almost before I could speak. Even though my family weren't particularly musical, there was always music around, and it inspired me to fall in love with it and become the musician I am today. I think I gravitated towards vocals in particular because of my love of songs. I was always captivated by the story and really obsessed with lyrics and what the songwriter was trying to get across to the audience. Singing became the channel by which you deliver that message. As I got older, I wanted to write my own songs because I wanted to tell my own stories and get my own feelings and emotions out into the world. The natural progression was to learn how to play instruments, so that was when I picked up a guitar and started playing piano. I grew up as a massive, massive Beatles fan. Paul McCartney is known for being the greatest songwriter of all time. For me, he's got one of the greatest voices of all time as well, and especially in the way he sings so melodically. He was definitely my number one, closely followed by Freddie Mercury. He had a very different voice to McCartney, operatic in his delivery, but also so much power. I always go back to watch Freddie videos when I want some inspiration for doing anything live, because he, for me, was the greatest live showman of all time. Thirdly would be Robert Plant. I studied him a lot. He's probably where my voice sits most naturally. A lot of Led Zeppelin is seated in blues music. It's just all about raw emotion. Those three singers for me are the top influences in my life. I think the seminal moment of my career was when I was in my early 20s and I was working in a school, and I was asked by my boss to clean out the store cupboard, which I knew hadn't been cleaned for a very long time. It was this thick with dust. And so I was wearing yellow rubber gloves and a dust mask, and I was thinking to myself, what am I doing with my life? That week, I was asked by a friend if I'd like to audition for this touring theatre show called Bohemian Rhapsody. I got the role, and so that was my first sort of professional theatre tour. I got an agent who then put me up for Thriller Live, which was a Michael Jackson production in the West End. With Thriller Live, I ended up doing almost 700 shows, I think. So I did 10 months on the UK and European tour, got to travel the world. Then they invited me to go into the West End after that. It was really hard work, but you really get to learn about your instrument. And that definitely stood me in really good stead and made me a much better singer and performer in the long run. I've been super lucky in my career to have played some amazing venues and worked with some amazing people. But if I had to pick a few highlights, the first one that springs to mind is a gig I did in Athens in Greece. So I do a show called Led Zeppelin Symphonic, which is a Led Zeppelin show with an orchestra and a live band, and there's three of us that sing in the show. And it was our first proper gig after COVID. So we'd been locked up in our rooms for a couple of years, and we flew out to Athens to play in the Herodio, which is on the side of the Acropolis. So it's a 2,000-year-old amphitheatre. And the release of emotion, walking out into this beautiful, ancient amphitheatre, singing Kashmir with an orchestra, it was just such a special moment in my life. I had a phone call one day from a producer friend of mine who said, "Hi, we're looking for a singer. We're doing an event. It's 50 years since England won the World Cup, and it's at Wembley Arena, sold out. So Bobby Charlton's going to be there, Jeff Hurst is going to be there, and we want you to sing Substitute by The Who." And I was like, okay, yeah, that sounds all right. I'm a massive football fan, massive Man United fan. Just before I go on, Sir Bobby Charlton collects this award on stage and comes off, shakes my hand, says, "Nice to meet you." And then I go on and perform my song to a sold-out Wembley, and come off stage, and he still stood there watching me, and we have a little chat about Man United. That was a pretty special gig for me. They don't get much cooler than that. And lastly is, as I sit here, I've just got back from the Isle of Wight Festival, and it was my first major festival as a solo artist. And I can't tell you what an honour it was to play. I headlined the Saturday night on the River stage at the Isle of Wight Festival. My songs were quite romantic, and I was playing a song, and a couple of guys got engaged during one of my songs.
Did you just propose? Oh my God!
Which was such a special moment as well. I think when you're preparing for a tour or a gig or whatever, it's about making sure you're so prepared that nothing's left to chance. When you're on stage, if you're thinking about your lyrics or you're thinking about, am I going to be able to hit this note, then it's about you. But I know that I'm going to be able to hit the note because I've done the hours and hours of practice. I know that I'm going to know my lyrics because I've learned them over and over and over again. So then it becomes about the audience and about an exchange of energy, about storytelling. And I think that's what stood me in such good stead. I think, like everyone, success comes from hard work and time and effort and energy, and a real love and verve for the music that I play.